Wayne to get us started this morning. If you could make your way to your seat. Welcome to our celebration of life this morning. We're really glad to be here with you this morning. We're going to start right off with a song, and that is in our new songbook, the White Binder. And those songs are in alphabetical order, and this song is titled Come and Go With Me to That Land. So under C for Come and Go With Me.
Good things about this song is that it'll get our blood flowing. And, it's also about gathering together.
See.
Fits with our theme of our speaker device. So it'll be, go with me come go with me to that land. Come go with me. Come go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come go with me to that land. Come go with me to that land. Come go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound.
You were right. Our musician this morning, can I break news? Get our blood pumping right after that. Yes. And my name is Sarah Jerome, Outreach Coordinator here at First Key. I'm very happy to welcome you this morning. We are a spiritual community philosophically based on existentialist and feminist principles, dedicated to human liberation. We make our spiritual home here in the old stone church, which was hand-built 100 years ago by the African-American Antioch East Baptist Church. We acknowledge that racial hostility drove those African-Americans from the area, and we honor them and the powerful history of this place. We also acknowledge that in the 1800s, the Muskogee Creek people were driven from this land, and we support justice for all Indigenous people. For our opening words this morning, I've been drawn to this poem over and over again. I've been recently drawn back to it, and I thought it fit our theme of interdependence well. The title of it is Watching My Friend Pretend Her Heart Is Not Breaking by Rosemary Watola Tromer. On Earth, just a teaspoon of neutron star would weigh 6 billion tons. 6 billion tons equals the collective weight of every animal on Earth. including the insects, times 3. 6 billion tons sounds impossible until I consider how it is to swallow grief. Just a teaspoon, and one might as well have consumed a neutron star. How dense it is, how it carries inside the memory of collapse, how difficult it is to move then, how impossible to believe that anything could lift that weight. There are many reasons to treat each other with great tenderness. One is that we are on a planet surrounded by dying stars. One is that we cannot see what anyone else has swallowed. If you have any community announcements this morning, I'll ask that you right back on this table where Jan is sitting. There are cards and pens. She's waving her hand if you're looking. If you could write those down and get them up to me before time for community announcements in just 10 or so minutes. We'd like to recognize any newcomers to our celebration of life this morning. Maybe you're here for the first or second time. We don't want to put anyone on the spot, so don't feel forced. But if you're willing, please tell us your name and how you found out about First Existentialist or happen to be here this morning. Do we have anyone? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Madeline. We were just walking by and we saw it and we really wanted community, so.
Thank you, Madeline, especially for being the spokesperson. And if you like, there is a connection card inside our program here that you can fill out, and I'll add you to our email list, and you'll get all our information if you're interested in that. Also ask if you have any other interests. And next we'll move right along to birthdays and anniversaries. Anybody celebrating a birthday? Oh, right, hop right up out of your seat. A birthday today.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Susan. Happy birthday to you.
Anybody else? Any other birthdays or anniversaries? All right. Until next time, we will move on to our congregational song number 2. This is in the old pink spiral-bound book, and it's called How Can I Keep From Singing? It's very easy to find. It's on page 1.
Number 1. I love playing this song. This song feels so great.
What's the number? 1.
Uno.
And this is where we'll be. My life goes on. Here we go. My life
Goes on an endless song of lover's lamentation. I hear the rill, the bar of him that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing?
If you'd like to say some words this morning, Marsha. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Very nice to see you all today. Isn't it a glorious day? You know, I thought, I think last Sunday when I said something about the nice weather that I expected it to get hot again, but we've had a really nice week. So I appreciate the universe for providing that. It makes me happy. Fall is my favorite time of year. And fall also, for us here at First Church, brings our Founders Day. And that is next Sunday. And I'm very excited that next Sunday we're going to have 4 of our founding members to give us a few words about their experience or whatever it is that they particularly are going to share with us. And they're also going to pick a song from the songbook that is their favorite. And since you know how much we love to sing here, I'm really interested in seeing what kind of songs that they had picked and what words that they have to say. I still, each Sunday when I get up, trying to think about what I want to say, I cannot help but my heart always goes to what is going on around the world. I was in tears this past week when I heard it once again that we have had a school shooting, and this one was right down the road from us. And I could not help but think about those parents and how terrified each of those parents must have been when they heard the news and were waiting to find out whether or not their child had been killed or injured. We have got to do something about violence in this country. Whether that is violence with a gun, whether that is violence with words, we have got to figure out how to be able to accept that other people have different opinions and that we may not agree with them, and that hopefully we can engage in conversation with them about our differences and learn from one another, instead of there being a us versus them mentality. I hope that each one of you, and I know I'm speaking to the choir, but it never hurts to remind you that anything that you can do, when you go to the grocery store, be nice to the clerk. If somebody wants to be confrontational with you, try to back that off. It's just weighing heavy on my heart that there's so much violence and conflict, and I just want us to hold in our hearts those people who have been negatively affected by it, particularly, but all of us are affected by it. You can't be a human being and not feel something about the tragedy that's going on, both locally and across the world. So I hope that each of you will. I don't want this to be a downer. No, gosh. But I do hope that we can begin to see a shift in the dynamics in the world, and that we will become more accepting of one another and able to dialogue and have peaceful relationships with people, even if they have different opinions than us. So, okay, enough preaching. Oh yeah. Two things. Are you going to tell it?
I am.
Oh.
But I don't know what your second is. That was one thing.
I mentioned Founders Day, which is next week, and I do hope that you will all come to that. But also today, after the service, this is the second Sunday, and on the second Sunday we have our existentialist discussion group. So please, if you have the time, I hope that you will join us. We start shortly after the service, and we pull up chairs up here into a circle and have our discussion. And I would ask that if you're not going to be a part of the discussion group and you want to hang out, please hang out on the steps so that the sound, those of us who are up here in the discussion group can hear a little better. Okay? Thanks.
When is the next potluck?
Excuse me?
Next week. The next potluck.
Next Sunday.
Third Sunday.
Next third Sunday. It's always the third Sunday, and it's Founders Day. So, wow. Think of your favorite recipe. Bring your favorite recipe, okay?
Thank you, Marcia, for kicking off those community announcements. I have two others. One is that the new school is sponsoring a car wash on September 14th from 11 a.m. until the cars stop coming. It is at 655 Memorial Drive Southeast in Atlanta. It's 30312, and it benefits the senior trip, of whom Alex Hu will be, of which Alex Hu will be attending. Where's the senior trip to?
Tulum, Mexico.
Ooh, we're gonna have to wash the cars.
Tulum,
Mexico. Very cool.
Tulun. Tulum.
If I wash cars, can I go on the senior trip to Mexico?
No, they only have 2 teachers, so I don't invite anybody else.
All right, and the second community announcement I hear is that on the first anniversary of submitting 116,000 signatures, the City Hall, sorry, this is the flyer I'm trying to summarize for you on the spot. I'm not doing a great job. So the petition to stop Cop City gathered 116,000 signatures, which still have not been decided on if that will be put on the ballot. And so on the first anniversary of turning those 116,000 signatures in, they're calling for some support at that council meeting to just keep it on the hearts and minds of those involved. And so that is 9/16/24, and I have lots more information on this flyer that I'm happy to share with you if you're looking for information, and then I'll put it in the back there. All right, that's all I have for community announcements. So we're going to move on to our time of silence. A time of silence lasts about 5 minutes. You may wish to meditate or pray or just sit silently. There are candles on each side of the sanctuary, and so you're welcome to use those. If you do want to move around for any reason, we just ask that you do it quietly so that that silence is as maintained as possible, and I'll let you know when those 5 minutes are up. My eyes have seen the glory on page 60.
Many words have been put to this melody, starting with the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Well, I think we're starting with John Brown's Fire. But these are wonderful words, and if you read the blurb at the top, you'll see that the woman that wrote these founded a Unitarian church in Los Angeles in 1877. Wow. And that she was a leader in
wide awake, and down their eyes must close no more. They will burn the sugar sheet, the sword, and sow the realms of war. They will bring the earth to blossom where the desert was before, as the truth goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. And the truth goes marching
Thank you, Craig. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our speaker this morning. This is her official bio. The Reverend Maureen Shelton serves as Director of Education and Director of Compassion-Centered Spiritual Health at Emory Spiritual Health. She is an ACPE chaplain, educator, and senior CBC teacher. That's her official bio, and I can tell you all those letters and all those words seem like big, important things, and they are, but I know, because I'm the beneficiary of many of those programs, that Maureen is just the loveliest person around. I've been talking to her about what I was eating for breakfast, and a line has formed, people waiting in line to talk with her. I've ignored man with a clipboard trying to sell me something on the sidewalk and walked a little farther and saw Maureen engaging in this happy, lovely conversation with the next man trying to sell her something with a clipboard. And she just always oozes compassion, and I could not be more appreciative of her. She's the best person I can think of to talk about what we've been really talking about this morning, which is interdependence. And so I'm so happy to introduce Maureen to you.
Linda, please make sure you can hear me. Is this okay? Not quite yet? Okay, better. Okay, I'll be mindful of that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for this invitation to return, and thank you, Sarah, for that beautiful invitation. We're so grateful to have Sarah as part of our Emory Spiritual Health family. She is such a gift. And I wanted to say, as Sarah just said, that I just been so moved by the conversation today and Reverend Marcia's words, and I feel like the sermon has been preached many times, so I'm very grateful for your wisdom and your community. So I'll just add some pieces for our consideration to maybe look at some things from some other angles. So wanted to just start with a story. It's a story of a father and a son who were driving one day, and they were coming across this traffic jam. And there was a bridge in front of them. In fact, it was a railway bridge. And what had happened was a large truck had gotten stuck underneath this bridge. And so it had too much of a load on it. And so it had backed up traffic for a long ways. And so the father and son, the father was very frustrated, as a lot of the motorists were, but the son was kind of aware of the wonder of the situation because he saw fire trucks and police lights, and he was like, what's going on? And he saw this train that had stopped. And he was just really curious, and he went up to one of the first responders that was there trying to address the situation, and the person was stuck. They weren't, the whole community of people trying to solve this problem were stuck. And the boy just kept trying to, say, I have a suggestion. I have a suggestion. And finally, one of the police officers turned to him and said, oh, please tell me, what do you think we should do? And the boy said, I think all you need to do is to let out the air in the tires. And indeed, that's what they did. And then they were able to solve the problem. Now, for me, that has many different layers of application in my life. But two things that I want to point out about that story in regard to this talk today about polishing our lens for seeing more clearly our interdependence is that the boy in many ways had a beginner's mind. He wasn't as caught, his attention wasn't pulled by so many of the other dimensions of what was happening in that moment of problem focused. He had this beginner's mind where he was able to see what can we do in the midst of the stuckness. So I want to just call to mind our capacity to have a fresh look as we look at complicated situations. And also another layer of the story is sometimes we are, because of our narrow focus, when we're anxious, it's a normal thing to do as a human, to become anxious and to get a very narrow view. We don't see who else is there and what other help might be there for us, what other resources are there. So just ask us to keep in mind these two pieces as we look at this lens of interdependence. So one of the ways to cultivate this sense of beginner's mind and this capacity to put our attention on what we can do is to perhaps cultivate a skill of interdependence, of being able to have this lens of our interdependence more sustainably. And through one practice that I talked about before when I've been here is cognitively based compassion training, which is a program that was developed at Emory and continues to be practiced there and is now spreading around the world. But one of the practices in the 8 practices of CBCT is this idea of cultivating our sense of gratitude and interdependence. In fact, it's the 7th of the 8 practices. But significantly, what comes before those practices, the first 3 in particular, are really about grounding. Being able to cultivate some inner source of safety, some sense of being more in the present moment through activities like remembering nurturance that we can access for ourselves. Being able to notice where we're placing our attention and sustain it in a way that's helpful to us to continue to have our capacity to bring forward compassion. So those grounding practices are really important. Before, in the later practices of CBCT, we take this more analytic, cognitive reappraisal. Sometimes in my practice, I have, throughout my life, I have tried to rush to taking a new cognitive reappraisal, a new way of thinking from a broader view, without noticing what I need to do to ground myself. And it doesn't stick. Because when we're not able to take care of ourselves, it's very hard to place our attention on one of these broader lenses. So if we can understand how our physiology works, how our minds work, perhaps we can be able to sustain these wider views that support compassion. So I wanted us to do just a brief exercise right now that can be seen as a grounding exercise, and it's actually part of this practice of cultivating an awareness of interdependence. So I'd like you just to take a moment and think about somebody in your life that's really cultivated your life and has poured into your life. This could be a mentor, a teacher, somebody that when you think about them, you think about how much they have given, even though they struggled with their own ups and downs in their life. They took the time, if it was a brief moment or a sustained offering, that they wanted to give you something to nourish you in your life or to reflect back to you your potential. So I just invite you to just take a moment and call a person to mind. Doesn't need to be the perfect person, just anybody who comes to mind. It could even be a stranger that you've come across in your life that offered you a significant kindness, that gave you a sense of new focus in your life. So let's just take a moment to think about a person who's offered us that strength. And if you're having trouble thinking of somebody that's totally normal, you can just maybe think about somebody that you heard today that has given you a sense of that support. So once you call them to mind, just invite you just to spend a moment, just when you're picturing them in your mental experience, to really see if by picturing them there, noticing what your felt senses in your body. What do you notice? What sensations do you notice? Perhaps you notice a sense of warmth around your heart, or perhaps an increased sense of ease, like your shoulders can relax a little bit. Or maybe a smile comes to your face. Calm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I just invite you to just continue to linger there, dwell with that for a moment as I continue to share. So one of the things we do in CBCT, taking into account this need to ground ourselves and then expand our awareness, is we start with something that we can recall personally that helps cultivate a particular skill. So like you just did, you think about something that's true for you personally that you can easily relate to. And then we start to broaden. So one of the other exercises here in regard to cultivating interdependence is to say, now that I have perhaps this felt sense of gratitude, if that could have been one of the felt senses that emerged, how can we fuel that gratitude to make it even more expansive? And one way to do that is to think about an object that in your everyday life you are very grateful for. Can anybody call out an object that you're grateful for? Teapot. Sorry? My electric teapot. Great. Anybody else?
Refrigerator.
Is paper?
Graph paper.
Graph paper.
Refrigerator.
Refrigerator. Wonderful.
TV set.
TV set.
Got the great games.
Yes. Linda, how am I doing? No? I'm so sorry. So I just invite you, whatever you call to mind, just invite you to just think about that object that you're grateful for. And then start to think about all the different people that contributed to you getting that object. So you can think about perhaps the people at the store who sell these things. The people who help to engineer and create these ideas. What are some people that come to mind who help participate in you getting this object?
People in factories.
People in factories. Mm-hmm.
My daughter.
Your daughter. Great.
The families of those people in the factories.
The families, yes. Yes, and maybe even the educators who trained the people in the factories, the people who supplied the food for the educators and for the people in the factories. So as we start to think about it, we start to think of more and more people who contributed to us getting this object. So what does that do in terms of broadening our lens? We start with this person that we recall that we have gratitude for, and then we think about, oh, there are all these other people that knowingly or unknowingly have given me something, that they have contributed to my well-being. And one of the things about these intentional contemplative practices is they help to make more visible what might be supportive of our cultivating gratitude more consistently and our sense of this interdependence that we have. For example, when I cultivate this awareness, I might be more aware that when I'm irritated with somebody, I can maybe bring to mind, after I cultivate this for a while, more spontaneously, that this person who's irritating me might have in fact contributed to my well-being in a way that they either knowingly or unknowingly did. And how does that shift? We talked about shifts earlier. How does that shift my awareness? So cultivating this sense of our interdependence perhaps give us more of awareness that a narrow view doesn't really make sense. That when we are thinking about how our actions, how we're going to proceed with making decisions about our actions, it makes sense to think about this infinite interdependent web that we exist in. And, you know, one of the things about being human that we talk about in the CBCT is that it's normal to have these kinds of times that we go through in our life that are stressful, where we can get very narrow in our view. And so by dwelling with these insights over time, like remembering these people who've given us a lot, feeling what that's like, that gratitude, getting that felt sense, and then expanding that awareness, doing that over and over and over again, that can, in fact, create new neural pathways. So that when we are in stressful situations, it's more likely that that perspective will come to mind. Like the beautiful story of, you know, people who have these different political views standing there with these different t-shirts and having their arms around each other, that capacity to choose those types of behaviors becomes more visible through this polished lens of our interdependence. So it becomes this embodied sense over time, rather than just a concept. And what this can do for us, perhaps, is alleviate suffering at many levels, including alleviate suffering in ourselves. Because sometimes we think that when we're caught in that narrow view, that we are all alone. And how much suffering does that cause when we think we're the only one? There's a crisis of belonging right now in our world. And so the more we can cultivate this awareness that we belong together, how much suffering that can relieve, not only for ourselves, but for the way we interact in the world. It can also help us alleviate the tendency we have to think that all the solutions are in my narrow view. Just like we talked about with the boy and the situation with the traffic. Sometimes I catch this in myself all the time, and thinking, okay, something's emergent happening, I am in charge right now in this moment, narrow view, all the resources are right here. So again, if it becomes more of an embodied sense that we all belong together, that there's resources here I can't see right away, wow, what a relief that is. It will help me to pause and put my focus and see what else is happening here. There are resources here I can't see yet. Let me dwell a little bit longer in the moment. And seeing that we belong to one another helps us to really get this felt sense over time that every action that we do towards the positive has a positive ripple into the web as well. Sometimes we don't see that. Sometimes it's because we're human, we can get overwhelmed by all the tragedies that are happening in our world right now. And I was so moved by this community's capacity to hold the challenge while also holding the light. And that capacity, interdependence, can be a real fuel for that light. It's one thing I'm proposing today that you've already expressed. You say here, immunity is strength, and you see it and live it, right? But just seeing how cultivating these skills within over time can make them a resource that we can call upon when we most need that resource. Brother David Stendhal-Rost, I don't know how many of you all know him, he's a Benedictine monk. And he has this beautiful 3 pieces of he says, will help to solve a lot of our capacity to not be able to access interdependence. He said to stop, dwell, and then go. A lot of this is this capacity to have gratitude and a sense of interdependence, is to really be able to pause, see what's here, see what resource I might need, and then continue on our path and see how we can implement our insight. So I invite us to continue to think about how we can cultivate individually and as a community this polished lens of interdependence, and see how it might bring us personal relief and how it might help us to mobilize our resources in a way that's beyond our immediate scene. And you all have such a welcoming hospitality here that I feel like that is an embodied sense of interdependence. So you're really saying to all of us who come in the door, what else do you have that we can't see that would be of benefit to compassion and to our common work? So I thank you for what you've already, how you already live into this. I would just invite you, if you would like to, there's the cognitively based compassion training course that's out of Emory. There's a course that's coming up in September and October that's going to be taught by the founder, Dr. Heggie. And you can go to compassion.emory.edu. That's coming up in September and October if you would like to see more of that class and just have a felt sense of experience with others who are interested in cultivating this.
Is it Zoom?
There is a Zoom option, yes. So just end with this an insight from the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. And he says that before we get up for breakfast every morning, we are helped by thousands and thousands of people. Because as we prepare our breakfast, we can cultivate an awareness of how many people have contributed to our well-being by helping us to have the food in front of us. And how that shift in awareness at the beginning of the day can bring support to you and your aspirations for compassion. Thank you so much for this time together, and blessings.
But we have new art on the walls. If you haven't noticed, you might take a look on your way out today. The artist's name is Diane Lamoth. We just had an art opening this last Friday, and it's really interesting, so make sure you take note. Also remember Marsha's announcements that Founders Day is next Sunday, and that's a special presentation. So be here for that, and there are both after Celebration of Life today, the Existentialist Conversation Group, and after Celebration of Life next Sunday, the potluck. So lots of stuff happening for us. To close us this morning, we're going to have
Sarah, may I make a very quick announcement?
Please.
Okay. I just want to say that Sue King, Bill Reed, helped us deliver all of the full food drive barrel over to our friends in Edgewood on Saturday, and they are always grateful to receive these goods. They get distributed locally today on the Sunday following our delivery. And so thank you. Let's fill it up again.
Speaking of interdependence, right? Our last congregational song this morning is We Gather Together. It's in the pink book on page 13.
And it says words by David Arkin. That's actually Alan Arkin's father.
We Gather Together on page 13.
And it's going to be a famous melody that if you went to church, you probably sang it in church too. We gather together to build in the morning.
you.